Hey kids, what we have here is one of the owl pellets that I collected underneath my or beside my tent site in that farmer's field in near Año Nuevo, California. And what we're going to do today is we're going to break this thing open, find out what is inside of it, see what we can learn about what the owl, probably the Bubo virginianus, the great horned owl, what it eats, when it eats it, etc., 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 etc. Okay, the first notable find in this owl pellet is a tick. The second notable find is another tick, which brings up the question: Is this were these two ticks on the same animal, or were they? Is this does this owl pellet represent? Does it contain the bones and hard parts of multiple animals? Here's some sort of worm, a a larvum of some sort. So far, I found bones from some sort of rodent, ticks, and living larvae of one or more than one species. You can see a lot of mammal hairs here. These are clearly mammal hairs. You can see pieces of chitin. Most of these are from ticks. The outer mixed into this is some hard platy material. I don't know quite what this material is. It could be maybe skin. I'm not exactly sure what this is. And here we go. It's very, very hard. And throughout this, you'll find bone fragments. This here is the outside of one of these pellets. And then if we turn it around, that's the inside. Another interesting thing to note is these spherical structures everywhere. Oop. Inside this owl pellet, there's all kinds of little spherical structures. It's not clear to me what they come from. We can also observe here what looks like feathers right here, and some sort of bone here. Question as to whether or not this is a mammal bone or an avian bone or reptile bone is good to ask. This to me, this is about a millimeter wide right here. And this bone to me looks, the holes look to be, the consistency of the core of this humerus-like bone, to me suggests, A, it's a very small animal, and B, maybe a bird. Because he's a very, very, very small. It's also not very dense. It's not dense like a reptile bone, I think, would be. I think it's a bird. Here we have what I've found. Here's some of the grubs. You can see some bone fragments there. Grubs, that's some sort of, I don't know what part of the body that is, but we're going to find out. That's a tooth right there. That's a tooth from a rodent of some sort. This feather was on the outside of the owl pellet, so it may not actually, it may be from the owl itself. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to soak these in rubbing alcohol, in 50% isopropyl alcohol, the bones at least, to clean them up and see what else I can find about them. So what I think we have here is some sort of mouse. Based on this molar here, and this I believe is an incisor. It is fascinating to consider that these bones are all crunched up, they're all broken up, that the skull is cracked and these long bones are broken in half, and that many of the teeth have been removed from their sockets. Because this is some sort of mouse. I'm not sure what family it's from, but let's say a mouse of this size weighs something like 20 grams, maybe 25 grams. I don't think it'd weigh 30 grams, but you could even say 30 grams. And your average great horned owl weighs something in the range of, 1,200 to 1,400 grams, based on what the Wikipedia says. Well, that's it's about 1.6%. The mouse is 1.6% the size of the great horned owl. Well, I weigh about 86,000 grams, and so this is the equivalent of me eating something like a cottontail, swallowing it whole. Cottontail, the rabbit from the eastern United States and the South, everywhere but the West, eating a whole cottontail, crunching it up without my teeth, in my esophagus somewhere, and then regurgitating the whole thing. Put another way, this owl can swallow this animal whole, crunch it up, remove obviously a lot of the nutrients, and throw it back up. Have you ever crunched through the bones of a rabbit? No. Now, of course, the French do eat ortolan, and they eat them whole. But of course, that kind of a bird weighs 4 grams, and also, well, let's not talk about the French too much. I tried to determine what season these owl pellets were from. I mean, I found them a couple days after Christmas 2020, but that does not mean that these were regurgitated anywhere near the time. They may have been sitting there a very long time. Because I found several tick, probably dermacentor, several tick bodies, many, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 inside the owl pellet. That leads me, to believe that either ticks are active during the winter, or these pellets are leftovers from a time in which they're active. Obviously, the owl wasn't preying on the ticks. The owl was preying on some mammal, and the ticks were the mammal was host to the ticks. Here you can see the body of one of the ticks there, and of course one of the living larvae. I found several larvae of different sizes inside that one pellet, which measured about 2 centimeters in length, the pellet itself. I wonder if the larvae were deposited after the owl pellet was regurgitated, or if the larvae have hatched from eggs present in something on the prey animal of the owl. I assume that these larvae came from were deposited by insects after the pellet was regurgitated. Next question to ask is, were these larvae in this state when I found the pellets 4 or 5 days ago, or did they hatch when I used a heater to dry them out? When I found the pellets, as you can see in the original video, they're rather wet. Some future directions for this, I have some other owl pellets, which I will dissect, and if I find anything interesting, I'll make a video of it for you folks. I'd like to learn more about what the great horned owl eats. Some papers I found have shown that the great horned owls tend to regurgitate one pellet for each meal consumed, and while most of the animals they eat whole, they do actually eat animals larger than themselves, meaning that they take chunks out of them, like humans and wolves do, sometimes returning to the same kill multiple nights in a row. Well, there you have it. A little bit of investigation into the contents of the owl pellet of the great horned owl, Bubo virginianus, as I found it underneath some cypress trees in a farmer's field adjacent to Año Nuevo National Park here in California.